Right, that's us now, I believe. Right, well, welcome, folks, to the Future of Work Scotland. Lovely to see so many of you joining us. I'm delighted to be hosting this session tonight. My name is Sathpal Singh. For those of you who don't know me, everybody calls me Sath. I'm also a trustee at the Agile 20 Reflect Festival, and this event is one of many events in that wonderful programme. This was actually the very first event to go into the programme calendar, so delighted so many of us have joined us. I'm here with my co-hosts, Donald Henderson and Nicola Bennett. And just a few formalities before I hand over and introduce our wonderful panelists. And I know that's why you're all here this evening, to hear from them. Yep, as I say, this is a Agile 20 Reflect event. It's a free global festival. We have over 700 events now in the programme. It's been built by volunteers around the globe, you know, a tremendous collective effort. It truly has been. There's a hashtag there in the bottom left-hand corner. My co-host will share it in the chat for you. So do please feel free to use that. If you want to tweet anything, if one of our wonderful panelists says something really profound, which I'm sure they will, you know, you could retweet it. You know, feel free to tweet us as well at the Future of Work, and anything that takes your fancy. Just get it out there. The website there address is in the bottom right. So yeah, feel free to jump into the website and peruse the rest of the program. There's so much stuff on offer. And a quick shout out to our supporting organisations. They're on the top of this slide. Just moving on swiftly. Yep, I'm sure you're used to us doing the code of conduct piece at Future of Work. As this is a part of a festival, we are all bound by and agree to adhere to our community policy. So just to make you all aware of that, if you would like to take a look at that, you can access that on the festival website. And also, as I mentioned earlier, this is a free event. It's been built by volunteers. All the events are free, but should you wish to donate, you can do so on the website using that URL there. And yeah, the festival was open with a wonderful opening ceremony on the weekend, and we seem to be in full swing now. There's so much going on. It seems like everybody's already taking a lot from it, but it's running throughout February. So that's probably the formalities. Let me just close that off. Right, I think that's my slides gone. Right, so yeah, welcome. I'm thrilled to be doing this tonight. As I say, I've had it in the calendar for a long time. It's took a long time for it to come round. I am delighted and honoured to be hosting Lyssa Adkins, Johanna Rothman and Tobias Mayer. Both Tobias and Johanna have been previous guest speakers at Future of Work Scotland, so we're delighted to welcome them back. And we are thrilled that Lyssa has joined us for this session. This is also the second time this week I've had the privilege of hosting Lyssa and Johanna. So this is great. And I also joined Johanna's session yesterday, and that she did for a different meetup. So this is excellent. And it's bringing us all together. So just to start us off, rather than me introducing our wonderful panelists this evening, we thought it'd be nice if they introduced one another, because they all know each other. They've all been on the circuit for a long time, and they're all friends, etc. So it'd be interesting to hear how they wish to introduce one another. So Lyssa, can I start with you? Who would you like to introduce? And can you kick us off?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm going to introduce Tobias. So you can look up Tobias Mayer, everyone. He is a writer, a prolific writer, multiple blogs. He is also a beautiful poet and prose writer, little known fact. And I want to tell a story about Tobias, which he may not remember actually. So this is back in 2008 or so. I had decided I wanted to be a certified Scrum trainer, and I needed to co-train with people. And I had met Tobias in spring of that year. And then a couple months later, in August, he said, well, I'm teaching a class in Finland. Why don't you come to Finland and teach with me? I'm teaching 2 different classes, Certified Scrum Master and Certified Scrum Product Owner. And I looked at my husband and I said, can I just get on a plane and go to Finland? Now remember, this is 2008, everyone. This is a long time ago. And, you know, I wasn't used to flying all over the world like I am now until last year. And I did. And Tobias and I had a wonderful time teaching. And Tobias completely embodied the soul and the values of Agile and Scrum in particular. Because at the end of it, he took out an index card and he said, okay, right, this is how much I'm getting paid for each half day of what we did together. And he said, you were more than a trainee. I think you contributed a lot to it. So give me an estimate of like how much you think you should be paid for each of these half days, and I'll do the same thing and we'll compare notes. And we did. And it was the most fantastic thing because I didn't expect to be paid anything. It was generous, it was real, and it was deserved. And so it felt like that I had stepped into a new world of how work is supposed to be. And since then, Tobias and I have been dear friends, and we tussle and argue over things, but things don't separate us.
Thank you, Lyssa.
Do you remember that?
That was very touching. And I don't remember that story. Indeed, I don't. I'm glad you do. Thanks for telling it. So I get to introduce Johanna. And I've never really met Johanna. We think our paths may have crossed at one Agile conference or another over the years. The first one I went to, Agile conference, was in 2005. And there were a lot of people involved in the Agile field. You know, the names that we know, mostly from the Agile Manifesto signees. But there were a bunch of women around at that time who I was kind of in awe of. You know, Johanna was one of them. Esther Derby was another one. Jean Baker, Lyssa Crispin, Linda Rising. So, you know, a lot of these people had written books. And I think Lyssa Crispin was actually the very first Agile person I ever met at a non-Agile conference several years before that. So there was an awful lot of women involved in the Agile community in those days. And I think that might be one of the topics that we get to talk about today. So, you know, Johanna and I, our paths crossed, and we didn't really become friends or anything, but probably about 5 years, maybe 4 years ago, I started to follow her newsletter. And as many of you know, Johanna is known as the pragmatic manager. And, you know, I have to be honest here, I don't read much Agile stuff. You know, I sort of did in the early days, but I really don't now. I read Lyssa's book as she was writing it. I have to say, I don't think I've actually read it since publication. So, but there was something about Johanna's newsletter and the way she approaches the work and the practicality of it and the humanity of it that really drew me in. And I love the way she writes the stories, and sometimes they're written almost like fiction. And I found things to agree with, things to disagree with, and things to kind of go, oh, that's a good one to think about, you know. So I was really very engaged in that. And for me, it sort of personifies the Agile field. You know, there's an awful lot of literature around, an awful lot of people writing, and it's hard to sort of like find your way through it all sometimes. And I was really happy that I found my way to the pragmatic manager. And I just want to read a line that Johanna has on her website when she's in her About Me page, because for me, it encapsulates this so well. I help leaders and managers do reasonable things at work. I love that, you know, compared to all of this big sort of like promises that we make as consultants. Do reasonable things, you know, that's the best we can hope for. That might be the future of Agile, actually, doing reasonable things at work. So that's Johanna.
Thank you, Tobias. I really appreciate that. So I met Lyssa before I think you had gone to an Agile conference. You had started to write little bits and pieces. This, I think, was before you published the coaching book. And then I actually met you at a conference. I don't remember which conference it was, but you had us all be in a circle, and we were doing one of the exercises, activities, whatever you called it, from how to figure out where you were headed as a coach. And I thought, oh my, I really like this. This is how I really think about coaching. I didn't agree with everything you said. That's not the point, right? But I thought, oh, what a nice way to kind of hone in to what a coach really is, where we might participate, where we might not, where we might question ourselves. And for me, questions are a very, very big thing. And then I know I have waited in lines with Lyssa at elevators, for the ladies' room, for lunches, for breakfast. We always have something to talk about. And what I really appreciate most of I think about Lyssa is her inclusion, right? She is very able to find a way to discover our inclusiveness rather than the things that separate us. So yeah, for that reason, I've been following Lyssa for the last at least 10 years. I think maybe 12. Yeah, long time.
That is so sweet. Thank you.
That was wonderful. I loved it. I knew it would be good. No, you're all very inspiring, and it's lovely to hear you talk in such a human way. I think it's fab. Right, okay, let's move the conversation on a little bit and get some of this debate going, shall we? So I think perhaps just to start us off and build this up a little bit, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on what one thing would you kind of like people to know about Agile, maybe at an organizational level, in personal lives, or perhaps in the communities in which we inhabit. So what sort of one thing would you like them all to know? It could be anything. How about we start with you, Lyssa? Why don't you start us off, if that's okay?
Sure. I think I would like people to know that it's not limited to corporations or national borders, and that I see that we as a human species have a lot of big
Oh, lost Lyssa. Is it just me?
No, I think we lost her. How about if we?
Okay. I was going to say, why don't you share, Johanna? Let's keep it moving.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to share your thoughts? Hopefully, Lyssa will return in a minute.
Hopefully. So when I think about agility, I think about adaptability. That we see where we are, and we see that there are possibilities for alternatives. And the more we see our possibilities for alternatives, the more we can use agile thinking, agile approaches, agile anything, right? So it's all about the ways that we can adapt to the world around us.
Brilliant. No, it's lovely. The possibilities for adaptability. Wow, that's quite a statement. I'm sure that'll come back later in the session. Tobias, what about yourself? What's your thoughts?
One thing I want people to know about Agile, the way I look at it, what we call Agile, I tend to focus on structures like Scrum a bit more generally, because the Agile manifesto, as we know, is written very much for software developers, and it's branching out a lot further than that, obviously. But the thing about both the way the manifesto is written for us in the software world, and the way something like Scrum is designed, they're very natural ways of working. There's nothing strange about them at all. And I think what I want people to understand is Agile is what we do when we're not in the workplace. Right? We do it in all aspects of our lives, and we do it in relationships, we do it with friendships, we do it when we make things, we do it when we design new ideas, we do it when we do it in with our children. The principles that we have around Agile and the way we have of working, this reflective, thoughtful way, continuously improving on what we do that anyway. We're good at it. We're really good at it. That's how we've arrived where we are today. And yet when we go into the workplace, we leave it at the door, we leave it at home, we come to the workplace and we do this other weird thing in the workplace. And I want people to know that Agile is It's innate in us. And let's not leave it at the door anymore. Let's just bring it into the workplace. One thing.
Well, all of that. I would expect that from the author of the People's Scrum. Right, okay, so that leads me nicely into...
I've got a message from Lyssa. She said the power went out, the router's trying to start up again, so she will be back.
It looked a little bit abrupt, didn't it? Okay, so we often use phrases like, oh, Agile is about people, just to build on what you've just kind of said. And I'm kind of wondering, well, how true do we really find that to be? You know, is that something we see? Is that something people say? I mean, how accurate is that? How does that kind of align to your experiences in reality? Johanna.
Yeah, you saw me. You saw my face.
You were ready. You were ready.
I am. So when I hear the words a lot, I hear the words interactions over whatever it is, right? I mean, I'm not sure people even say what the other part of it is. And I don't see enough people orientation in most organizations. And to me, this is not about large companies or small companies. Anytime managers or anybody else calls people resources, I wonder about their thinking, right? People are not resources. People are resourceful. People can offer their inner resources to other people. But this business of people are resources, oh, that just makes me crazy. So it's ingrained in many of our organizations. Does that mean that the people who say those phrases are bad? No, they are repeating what the organization says. But we are so accustomed to integrating those words and then not changing our thinking because of it, right? That the words definitely influence our thinking. So I find that when I hear a lot of people say Agile is about people, and when I work with them, I find maybe not. Yeah.
Okay, so in answer to my question, you're a definite no.
Yeah, I'm okay. So if there's yes and no, I'm right up against the no.
Fair enough. Tobias, do you agree with that, or do you have a different view of the world?
I'm not completely sure what you're saying. That no, we don't focus on people in organizations. Is that?
I'm saying
that's correct. Yeah, that we are not focused enough on people.
Because we focus on profit, of course. That's what we focus on.
Yeah.
You know, Agile is about people. What isn't about people? What isn't about people? Of course it's about people. If you ask, again, you take this out back into our normal lives. Outside the corporate world is the normal life. Inside the corporate world is the abnormal life. So you take it out of the abnormal life, back into the normal life. People are everything, aren't they? Families and friends and, schools and communities and shops. Everything is about people. We create friendships, we create relationships. You move to a new area, you soon become friendly with the milkman and the person running the local post office and the parents at the schools, and your kids make friends with other kids. It's all about people. Everything's about people. So again, it's just this weird thing. If we go into the workplace, suddenly the person is no longer a person. They're a resource, as Johanna said. They're a cog in a system, right? Now, we know that where that comes from. That comes from the Tayloristic thinking. Frederick Winslow Taylor's scientific management in the Industrial Revolution, where people were just plugged into systems essentially, and you take one out and you put another one in, and the same stuff happened. It's not like that anymore. The knowledge world is not like that, and yet we've got this hangover from that time. So the question, if someone, we talk about, is it about people? What isn't about people, and what do we mean when we say it's about people? It's kind of an empty phrase almost. Let's go deeper than that. Let's say something more about it's about people. let's explore those three words in relationship to each other.
Well,
yeah,
it's good. No, you just reminded me that the session I joined yesterday with Johanna. Johanna did actually say at one point, I'm going to quote her here. She said, Taylor's inspiration came from slavery, and it just blew me away.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that said, actually, I don't think, before.
Well,
Yeah.
the origins of cost accounting, the origins of minute by minute labor, divide and conquer, very small silos, all from slavery. It's disappointing. It's way more than disappointing. It's and it demeans all of us in every dimension. So the more we think about, and Tobias, you said something interesting. You said that a lot of organizations elevate profits over anything else. So back in, was it the 70s or the 80s or the 90s? Some famous consultants said, the job of every organization is to return value to the shareholders, which is so wrong in so many dimensions. I'm not even sure how to attack it. But if you think that that's the job of an organization, you cannot get to that job directly. The only way you get there is by indirect thinking and saying, how do we provide an environment where people can create our products and services that then return value first to the customers, and then the customers will buy, and that's how we return value to the stakeholders or shareholders or whichever S holders those are. And I think that we have missed a whole lot of that. Oh, Lyssa, you're back.
She's back. Lyssa's back.
Yeah.
I am. I'll be holding my phone, so we're going to have this shaky camera. But I appreciated hearing what you were just saying, Johanna.
I can't see you anymore, Lyssa, but it's good. It's good you're back. Welcome back.
She's down at the bottom of my screen. You'll have to look elsewhere for her, Seth.
I've got my gallery view, and Lyssa's not on it anymore, which disappoints me. But I can hear you, which is great. So just while you unfortunately dropped off, we were just starting by exploring this idea that we often use phrases like Agile is about people, and I know this one's going to be, I think, definitely going to have you sharing some interesting thoughts. But how true do we find that statement to be in practice in organizations? What do we see in reality? What are your thoughts on that?
I think we see people trapped by systems. I think we see people who want it to be about people. And then I hear those very same people. I heard one this week say, well, now that we're going to have, venture funding, we're going to have to get serious. And, the measure of people's success is going to be how well they meet their numbers. And it was like this person had just morphed in front of my eyes from someone who I thought I knew very well to someone who is now driven by a system that they presume they can't control. And I'm not sure that that's so. All of the systems changes that have ever happened in human history have been through humans. Not easy, but it's possible. And I think that the idea of being able to really interrogate what people really want, where they really want to head, what's the world they really want to create, well, have us create that. I think it's possible that we can create it. What we think about, we're going to create. It's really quite simple.
Yeah. No, I think we have the potential for great creativity, don't we? Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. That's really good. Okay, well, just building on that then, that's quite thought-provoking. Thank you for that. So it'd be good to spend a bit of time, just since we're here to talk about the future, where do we feel like the greatest opportunities are, especially around impact outside of technology? So we touched on it earlier. It's a very topical issue. It's coming up a lot at the moment. It's actually, been a thing for a while. but it's really getting a lot of traction, which is great. And a lot of the events we've actually seen in the festival program are testament to that. So they're not about the adoption of Agile in technology and engineering, though that's still the focus, and that's kind of where the manifesto kind of originated from. Where do you feel the greatest impact outside of tech and engineering domain could be, and why? Tobias, can we start with you on this one?
Well, given that I believe that Agile exists everywhere, I guess the answer is everything and everywhere. You know, there's been a lot of good work done over the years in education, with Scrum in particular, but I think Agile in general. I think that for me that's the focus, because how do we, you know, what we have is a funneling system, essentially, like a pipeline, isn't it, really, from schools through universities and into the workplace. And so people are arriving in the workplace with a mindset that isn't really Agile. They've come through this system, and so, you know, they've learned command and control, essentially. I mean, schools are command and control. Command and comply, actually, that's probably a better way of putting it. Command and comply. That's the school system. That's pretty much the university system, with a bit more autonomy, but not a lot. And so when we come to the workplace, we don't know how to self-manage. We haven't really learned that skill. It's only now starting to come into schools in the last, you know, decade or two, and in very small pockets, where students are, you know, given project work, and the work is centered around projects and self-management and stuff. And so bringing agility and self-organized teams into kindergarten and on, you're going to develop a different kind of a person. And so when those people arrive at work, they're not going to put up with the kind of systems we have at work at the moment. So it's, to me, it's the only place to focus on, really, because everything else is like cleaning up the mess. Right, let's not make the mess. Let's be proactive. Let's get them as babies. Start teaching parents as well. Teaching parents, parenting can do with an overhaul. You know, it's quite shocking how people are not taught to be parents. You know, we have to just figure it out for ourselves, and we base it on usually our parents, which is not always a good model. Agile parenting, that, you know, people talk about that now. How do you create autonomy in the family? How do you share decision making with a 2-year-old? You know, powerful stuff, though, if you get into it. So yeah, the Agile in families and Agile in schools, that's the focus that I would like to see.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like the Agile in schools, and I'm starting to get more interested in how the education system as well can apply Agile kind of ideas to support what it's trying to do and support learning. So, you know, and there are also events in the program which delve into that kind of more deeply. I'm not sure about the parenting one, if I'm honest. As a parent myself, and the challenges I'm facing with trying to homeschool, and my 13-year-old who's just, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, he's frankly doing my head in, and I feel like I have zero control. Not quite sure to handle that. I'm not sure how Agile would help me, but Johanna, any build on that? Any thoughts?
Sure. So let me, if I may, integrate a little bit about what Lyssa said about systems and systems thinking, and what Tobias said. I became a grandmother 4 months ago, which is very exciting. Thank you. My
Congratulations.
job, thank you. My job as a grandmother now is to support my daughter and be what I call the Nana whisperer to my grandson, right? So he was born little, they're all born little. So I whispered to him several times, you must eat, you must grow, you must sleep, you must do this every day until it's time for you to crawl, then you do it more, right? The typical grandmotherly things that a grandmother says to a child. And I see my job with my daughter now is to really support her decisions. She is going to make her own decisions with her husband in the best interests of the baby. But as soon as children are born, they start this separation from you, right? That's your job as a parent, to make it safe for them to separate. In the same way, we need to do this in schools. How do we help our children learn on their own? Nobody has to teach my grandson how to crawl, how to walk, how to try and roll over, how to talk. They do all of that. It's only once they get into school that we start diminishing their ability to take their own innovation. How do we support our families, our children and grandchildren, our schools, so that people can be trusted when they come out of school? One of the things I said in the Modern Management Made Easy books is that everybody who comes to work as an adult, right? All of us figure out how to get dressed. You don't have to like my clothing, but I am fully dressed. We feed ourselves. We enter into long-term contracts with mortgages, with spouses, with all kinds of things. And if we are able to manage our own lives, why are we not allowed to do the same thing at work? How do we change that system? And that's the system I want to think about and say, how do we make a system that works for the world? Yeah, I'm a little ambitious, and at least starting off in our families and then in school and then at work. So I kind of rambled there. Sorry.
It was beautiful. I didn't think it was rambling at all.
Thank you.
Personal
Thank you.
experience.
Lyssa,
Yeah.
do you want to pick up
Yeah,
from
I want to come in and build on this to a completely different level. Because imagine a world where we're doing what Tobias and Johanna are talking about. Imagine that. And imagine a world in which we are severely challenged by planetary issues like climate change and global financial market collapse and terrorism and all the things that are so today. And now imagine millions of Agilists all over the world. And I've lost my internet connection as I was saying this last time. You may have heard it, I don't know, but I want to build on it anyway, because I just keep thinking, what is our role? What is our role in those big topics? What is it that we know how to do? And how is it that we know how to be that could be useful to the people who are already working on those topics? And if you look at our community, our worldwide community that is warm and open and learning together, why couldn't we be this amazing force in the world? And so in some ways, you might want to think about your job doing whatever you're doing using Agile in your corporation as warm up or practice.
Okay. You do that every time, Lyssa.
What am I doing?
Be an amazing force in the world. Where do I go with that? That's it, folks. The session's over. That's it.
No, not at all. It's just begun, because it's something that's going to take all of us. I mean, in my mind, I see a network of networks. Yep. I don't even know how it's going to occur, but I'm fairly certain that the world is going to keep throwing at us these incredible challenges that we don't know how to meet right now. And it's for sure that the systems and the ways that we've been trying to meet them are ill-equipped for the task.
Yeah, no, brilliant. No, yeah, well, you talked about the network of networks. So when we chatted back when I did your interview, we touched on some of that, and really that's kind of the model for Agile 20 Reflect the festival, right?
Yeah, this has been an amazing experiment of that, actually. It's been absolutely gorgeous to watch it just spontaneously arise. Yeah. But it didn't arise out of nothing. It arose out of your very clear vision. Your very clear vision and your constraints. Because you had those constraints at the very beginning. It's like, this is how we want these events to be.
Yeah, the guiding.
It's the reason I became a patron, because I thought, well, these people have really thought it through.
Yeah, that was Mr. Steve Wright. I think, we knew the value of creating some guiding principles to provide that clarity of thought around what we were trying to do, and that was effectively how do we make this vision a reality. So no, I think we all love that, and we all thank you for saying that. And I think, you know, it's testament to everybody being here and the collaborative work we're all doing. So yeah, no, that means a lot to everyone who's involved, and many have been involved. No, that's great. I think we could go on with that one. Should we? I've got another one that I think could lead us into quite a broad debate. And as my panelists and co-hosts know, I had a little potential issue with the battery life on my iPad that I'm on. Have you got any interesting questions, Nikki, Donald, coming through in the chat for our panelists? Let's maybe split it up a little bit. Might be good to take a question or two from our wonderful attendees.
Oh yeah,
you got one?
I've got one here from Ian Tully.
We know Ian. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So do we want to bring Ian in?
If Ian's happy to unmute, I'm happy for Ian. If he wants to voice his question, he's welcome to do so.
He just put O in the chat.
Which one was that?
It's the COVID question.
Oh yeah. So I was wondering, with the advent of COVID and the situation that we find ourselves in, do you think it's for organizations that are maybe stumbling their way through their agile journey, that it's maybe tempting to just command and control the bleep out of things again and then revert back? Oh, this autonomy, maybe we don't really want to give that up after all. Let's just take back control.
So I think that there are a bunch of companies who have tried, and I think that control genie is way out of the bottle. I don't see how you can really require people to come in 5 days a week when they actually get so much more work done when they're at home, depending on their situation, right? So let me just say, I do not have children at home any longer. When my children were at home, they were not learning. They were not home literally all day. So, however, I keep hearing people saying, we need to go back. I don't understand why they're not saying, we need to go forward. And it's okay if I don't know where forward is, but I keep saying, I need to go forward, right? I don't really know where forward is. I only know I have these guiding principles and some constraints, like I'm not getting on an airplane. But so I have been able to speak all over the world because I don't have to get on an airplane. I'm finding this really freeing. So I think there will always be people who are nervous about letting, in quotes, other people find their autonomy because it threatens their ability to do whatever. And often it's about the rewards in the organization. However, if we can suspend that fear, we might be able to find something much more interesting going forward.
Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of so our next session is actually about the Agile HR. And one of the things that seems to be coming up a lot at the moment is this whole idea of, well, how do we get HR departments and HR operations to adjust their thinking so that they can actually do what they should be doing, which is supporting and evolving the culture for the in the best interests of the organization. And a lot of what you are saying kind of seems to kind of relate to that a little bit. Is that something any of you have a view on?
Yeah, I want to jump in on that one first because I kind of relate to that, but I'm kind of like, just wait until the next tsunami hits HR, because we're constantly having these world-changing events happen to us. COVID. Guess what's coming next, folks? Augmented and virtual reality. You know, I'm paying a lot of attention to exponential tech right now, and it's not going to be long before we are doing this, and it feels like we're in the same room. So like HR, organizations, anyone on the planet is not going to be able to hold those things back. So we can help people deal with the situation they're in right now and help them see how they're in their own way. That's one of my favorite things to do in the world, is just very gently but very persistently, like an octopus on a clam, help someone see how they're in their own way. And just wait till the next tsunami, because it's going to be an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, okay. Any more questions?
Tobias, what are you thinking about over there? It might not even be related to this question,
Well,
but what are you thinking about?
I'm curious about the question and a couple of the statements. So the question came very much from a what if they perspective. What if they do this? What if they stop us doing Agile? You know, so we've got to stop and ask ourselves, why are we talking about they? So presumably that means management or leaders of some kind. What about we? What do we want? Yeah, we've got this opportunity here in this world that we're living in right now for almost complete autonomy in how we do our work. And we've got the ability to reach out and exchange ideas and learn from one another across the world, as Johanna says. You know, why limit it now? If we're, as a developer, one of the things we must always do is stay sharp, right? We are our tool as a software developer, and so we need to stay sharp. And by staying sharp, we need to continuously learn. And so we're online, we're here, we've got all these things at our fingertips, and we can reach out into these forums and communities. The things that perhaps in the workplace, the manager will come by and tell you to stop doing that. They can't do that anymore because they can't see it. So we've got this incredible freedom to really do our work effectively. It's wonderful, I love it. But the other thing I want to challenge Sath's comment about HR, that they're there to support us. They're not. They're the police of the organization. They're not there to support the workers. They're there to support the structure and the status quo. So be aware of that, because that's important. Now, I'm not saying they're not good people. Many of them come into this with great intent, but the structure of that is what that organization is for. The HR organization is there to make sure that people don't step out of line and things are working according to the status quo. I've been in organizations where I've had some wonderful people in HR who were creating these brilliant initiatives to, you know, get people to think for themselves and self-organize, and they've been utterly crushed by upper management, and it's tragic to see. So I don't know what the answer is to that. It's like we need to rethink. We certainly need to rethink the term, right? Human resources, really. You know, human relationships maybe is perhaps a better way of using the same letter.
I've heard that acronym used in slightly different ways, which I won't repeat on this call.
There's a meme about that, I'm sure.
I know. I take your point, and I guess what I'm trying to say is this whole idea of agile HR, is that really an attempt to basically try to move away from everything you've just described?
Yeah, you know, the thing, Sath, that I think is really important, and this is important to me, is that it's not HR's job, it's not management's job, it's not leadership's job, it's our job. We are the people that are going to make the changes. No one else is going to do it on us or for us or at us, right? And then we have to get away from that idea that someone else is going to fix it.
Yep.
Yeah. I often tell people, you know, if you can't change the people in the organization you're around, then change the people in the organization you're around. You know, and I know that is a terrifying thought for a lot of people. Oh my gosh, I'm going to leave this situation. But think about it. It's sort of like getting up, in many cases, the courage and feeling of enough self-worth to leave an abusive relationship. I help so many people through this transition, and the parallels are shocking. So, and then we often, you know, when we were working with Agile coaches a lot in these large programs, you know, that were multi-day and really intense, they would say, my God, you know, I need to leave my job. I know I need to do that, but what will I do? And we said, look around. Look around. Here are the people that you will create the next thing with, right here. And I think that's true of the 122 people on this right now and the thousands of this that will listen to it later. Look around your Agile community. The people that have the same work ethic and work values you do, those are the people you want to be around. So that won't work for everyone, but it doesn't have to. It only has to work for some of us, and then the rest of us go work for them.
We have another question. Shall we move to that?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'm just trying to. I'm
Yeah.
having to move location.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is from Tom Yans. Are people trapped by their beliefs?
Yes. Sorry, I imagine you wanted more than that, Tom. Other people can weigh in here, but yeah, I do a lot of that work, helping people understand their limiting beliefs and decide if they still want them or not.
Yeah, that was in
So
response to what you said about people being trapped by systems. Well, I think people can only be trapped if they let themselves be trapped.
No, there are structures inside the organization that also trap people, and you have to really find something inside of you to give you the courage to escape that trap or to challenge that trap. So it's not just their beliefs. So yeah, some people don't challenge their beliefs. They believe whatever the system and other people are saying. But my experience is it's not just beliefs. There's a whole bunch of system work. The culture of the organization, which is what we can discuss. This is from Edgar Schein. How we treat each other and what we reward. All of that creates a system that that makes it possible or impossible for some people to challenge that system. Now, you'll notice that Lyssa, Tobias, and I are all consultants, and we're all independent, which means I think that we are all very good at challenging the systems that we see. Not everybody feels as if they can.
Yeah. And I can tell you that when I'm in a system, it doesn't take me long to become inducted into that system, to where I don't see the ways that the things that are happening are working against what the organization really wants, working against how the organization really wants to use Agile to achieve its goals. I stopped seeing them. I stop it pretty quickly, actually, in my experience. And so that's why I think an external view is helpful, because I don't think we see what we're doing. And I don't think we can see the systems we're in. I also know in my own experience running Agile Coaching Institute, there came a time when we needed organization and relationship system coaching, and we didn't get it. Because we can't even see ourselves, even though we know how valuable it is, even though we do it ourselves. So it's like, this is the thing, having this outside view and having this person to lead the person, the team, a big part of the organization through the change they're up to, I think it's really essential.
Yeah, but it's still the beliefs. I have to change my own beliefs, and you can help me see certain things I'm not seeing at this moment.
That's right.
But you will not be the one setting me free.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And there are plenty of people getting plenty of benefit by being chained, and they'll stay that way, and it might work for them.
That's great. Thanks for that, Tom. Just to our panelists, would you like to stop for a couple of minutes? We've got just over half an hour. Are you happy to keep going?
I'm fine to keep going.
I can't see Lyssa. I can only see Johanna and Tobias. You okay, Johanna? You happy to keep going?
Yes.
Half an hour. Okay, great.
You guys should all know that I said to Sath earlier this week that often we need a break as humans every 45 or 15 minutes or so. But I think we're okay. Yeah,
I just need to move. So yeah, I'm just I like movement.
Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, see, I was listening, Johanna. See, I was listening. I took on board your feedback, and I've applied it.
You do a nice job, Sath.
So the have you got? Well, maybe I have another couple of questions. I think at the end, Nikki. I think you've probably got other ones that'll build up as we move into the next debate, because I think this might be the most interesting one in terms of everyone's views. But I'm quite keen to explore the kind of ethical debate a little bit. So we are going to have a dedicated debate later in the festival. But I read something recently, and it said something along the lines of use Agile because it's the ethical option. And I was curious about that. And I thought, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that statement. And if we take things like, you know, all the Agile wars and things that we've kind of seen over the years, and things that have kind of unfolded in the industry, does the industry's ethical, does the industry ethics, do they need reviewed? Do they need revisited? Where does that fit into our future? Lyssa, you wanna start?
Well, I think we are feeling the shadow of not being able to walk our talk as much as we'd like. As I look out in the Agile community itself, and as I look to our main consultancies, as I look to what's happened as the more established traditional bigger players have entered the market, I notice that we ourselves start to adopt business practices and structures that are from a very achievement, results oriented, strive, drive, kind of get it done mentality. And that's not where our values and our principles live. Our values and principles live in a pluralistic, relationship driven, let's really dive into the depth of this. Let's figure out the best thing for the most people, and then let's do that. But we don't necessarily have ready-made structures for what that value system looks like in practice. But we're getting them now. I mean, if I think about the books that have been released in the last year, I think about one that was just released in November called Lead Together, which I'm going to tell you, I'm recording the narration for the audiobook right now. It's not my book, it's a friend's book and with 2 other authors. But I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about, what are those structures that I would have wanted to know about when I was a business owner, and I myself capitulated to sort of the sort of capitalistic competition, move and groove, get it done, strive, drive. And then we have Evolve Agility, which is about how to create a leadership culture. Agile Transformation is a new book that just came out from Michael Spade and Michelle Medor last month. So, I mean, like, we have these things that are now having us be able to be more aware of what it looks like when we're walking our talk. Now, do we need an ethics review? I don't know. I don't know about that. I just want to see us continue to move forward and continue to use what we're encountering to learn. Now, I could be swayed because I don't know half of what's going on. I don't even know 0.0005% of what's going on in the world.
You want to comment on that, Johanna?
Well, I actually would like to hear Tobias first, if that's okay, because I'm actually still thinking, which is so unlike me.
It's a big one. I mean, I'm not really pleased with the angle that I took at it, honestly, because I think I could come up with 5 more angles now, but good enough to get going.
We've got time. Good,
Tobias, what you got?
Okay, what have I got? I don't know. It's one of those words we just kind of throw around, isn't it? Ethics. We need to have an ethical organization, and we all disagree on what that really means, I think. So for me, this is what it means. It means an organization where every person who's part of that has their physical and emotional needs met. And it's really as simple as that. And there are so many structures, probably most of them in the workplace, but also political structures as well, where people's emotional needs are not met. So even if we have, the basic kind of bottom of the Maslow triangle needs of security and, housing and shelter and food and so on, there's the needs for human beings to be in connection with one another, for us to have autonomy, for us to have safety, to feel safe, to have intimacy, to build community, to be able to give and receive attention. So a lot of that has been threatened by the situation we're currently in. So you could say, well, you know, in lockdown, that lockdown is unethical, you could say, by the definition of ethics that I'm giving, is that our needs are not being met. We're being threatened. People are losing work. They're not being well supported. There's a massive amount of mental health issues. That's not ethical. You know, when a large percentage of the country is suffering from depression and anxiety, and there's nowhere to go to treat it because everything's on lockdown. That's unethical. So what do we mean when we talk about ethics in the workplace? You know, this shakes it all up, I think, doesn't it? But if we are able to look at the needs of each individual human, and we all have a similar set of needs. We're all people. We have almost an identical set of needs, I would say. We need to meet them to different degrees depending on who we are. But if those needs, and I'm talking about emotional needs, if those emotional needs are not met, we don't have an ethical system. And sometimes that is just the way it is, like now. It's not ethical, but we must keep striving for it, and we have to know what we're striving for. And it's not just some vague, you know, goodness thing, like be good and don't, you know, be kind, don't be evil, all that. The sort of stuff that we throw out a lot in the corporate world, do no evil and be kind to everyone. It's not enough. We'll do more than that. That's my take on it, Johanna. What you got?
Thank you. So, and thank you for letting me think for a minute. I think that there's two separate things here. There's ethics, and then there's integrity. And what a lot of my clients are doing is they say we have a certain kind of integrity inside our four walls, right? Four virtual walls. And we share a different kind of integrity outside those walls. And I find that behavior unethical, because I have yet to see a very large permeability between what goes on inside and what the face of the organization is to the outside. I find that people are much more consistent than we might want them to be. And I really struggle with this. I find that this is not about people being bad or stupid or wrong. This is about what they hold dear to themselves, what really drives them. So I have trouble with Sath. I'm looking over at the notes that we all had before so I could remember what Sath said. And I don't think that Agile is necessarily the ethical option. I think that any approach that supports humanity in the workplace, that's the ethical option. And that we deal with each other as humans as authentically as we possibly can. But I don't think that agility has anything specifically to do with that. I am much more worried about what happens on the inside versus what happens on the outside.
Yeah. I like the bit at the end. Yeah, I think humanity. Okay.
Yeah, let me take that one forward a little bit, because I really love what Johanna's saying, and I want to just sort of muck around in it myself a little bit. I definitely hope that the era of what happens inside a corporation and what happens outside, who they purport to be and who they really are, that era is drawing to a close. And I think it could be drawing to a close because my 23-year-old is not going to work for any of those companies. And she's going to have just a fine work life. She is a very functional adult. And she can spot a toxic environment a mile away. She knows it within the first conversation within an interview cycle. And she looks for things that align with her purpose. And it's not to say that all 23-year-olds are like that, but many. There is something up with the continual push toward the evolution of the human and our continued ability to work with and even embrace more complex situations. And and not let go of who we are, not let go of our values, regardless of where we are. So in a lot of ways, I really feel like my work is just sort of softening up the ground so that she and her generation can do their work. Because I really think that most of what we're dealing with and all the questions I get, which start with, how do I, and it ends with some sort of flavor of, yeah, I really want to do this in my corporation, but they'll never let me. So back to what Tobias said. All of those things are just pain that we're going through. And I honestly, I'm going to bum you out now, I honestly don't think we're going to make great strides there. But if you think about just softening up the environment for the next generation, because they are the next evolution of where we're heading as a species, I don't know, maybe that's worth it. I think it is for me, at least.
Okay, so I'm gonna respond to that because I'm the old lady here, right? I'm the one who's been around since the 70s. I'm not sure if anybody else has been around since the 70s. I will tell you, work has totally changed since I started to work. And this is an excellent thing. Excellent, excellent. There's some stuff that hasn't changed. I'm too old most of the time for men to make passes at me. The last time only occurred 3 years ago. So maybe I'm not really that old. Maybe I'm older now. I know Scott's laughing. Yeah.
Love it.
So the more things change, the more they stay the same because we are human and the world of work has totally changed. I would like to think that people like me and my peers, my male and female peers, have changed the state of work so that people who were then 10 years younger and now 20 and 30 and 40 years younger have a different environment at work. I would like to think that. And maybe we did, and maybe we didn't. Maybe it all happened with laws. I don't know. But I think that it's partially softening and partially, well, if you're like me, you kind of use that hammer. So whatever works. But I am really an optimist. I think that we have the capabilities in ourselves to really attack big problems and make progress on them. That's been my experience.
Yeah. I want to pick up a little of the thread that's going on in the chat too. That's something that really concerns me. Because yes, I mean, Johanna, for certain, oh my gosh, since I entered the workforce in the 90s, it's changed like radically, you know. And in the chat, we're getting some things saying that Zoomers are not very optimistic about their future. And of course, this is not true of all Zoomers, but it is true of my daughter. My daughter doesn't plan to have children right now, which is a great sadness to me. I never imagined that I would raise someone who looks out at her world and says, this isn't a good place to bring in another human being in. And her degree is in human rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability. So she is right in the middle of all of the hard issues. I mean, I watched her go through college and thought, oh my gosh, I'd be so exhausted from having to confront the hard issues of the day in every single class, but that's what she did. And I think at the same time, they're not optimistic in a Pollyanna sort of way that I was when I came out of college. I thought, you know, if I just work hard and climb the ladder, it's going to be great. If I get the house, I get the dog, I get the husband, I get the baby, it's going to be great. And you know, that whole thing is not at all how she sees the world. She sees the world full of existential threats. She sees the world, I think, a lot more clearly than I saw the world when I was in my 20s. And I think she sees this world more clearly than I do. So that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is horrible and bad. It just means that, you know, I love the fact that Agile helps us deal with what is. And I think that's what this generation is helping us do. They're helping us see what is.
Yeah, I like that. I was listening to both what you were saying, Lyssa and Johanna. We'll try and shift position.
Let me, sorry, Seth. I just realized. So Tobias has young children. Tobias has older children and young children.
Okay.
I have two generations of children. So I was just thinking, 7 years ago and 5 years ago, I brought two girls into the world. Well, personally, I didn't actually bring them into the world. My wife did that part. But here they are. And I never had any qualms about it. And I don't have any regrets, certainly. I don't share that the emotion that you said your daughter has, Lyssa, and certainly a lot of people do have, and there are a lot of people are making that decision not to bring children into the world, or being perhaps a bit more thoughtful about it, more reticent about that. I don't see the world that way. Maybe I'm just, I don't know if optimist is the right word. It isn't, I don't think, but I see that this is still a beautiful place that we live in. It still is, and it has problems, and we see them and we talk about them and we do our best, and it might not be enough, and it might all go to shit, who knows. But I don't see that should stop people bringing more people into the world, because if anyone's going to change it, it's going to be people, isn't it? Right? People mess it up, the people are going to fix it. Maybe the new babies are going to be the ones that fix it. Right? You better have more of them, otherwise it never will mend. So it's different ways of looking at it, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I like Scott's idea of putting this in a time capsule and watching this 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Right. Do we? We've got about 15 minutes, I think. Nikki, we got maybe another couple of quick questions, and I'm gonna go back to our panelists for some sort of closing thoughts before I wrap up. Got any juicy questions for us?
Yeah, so Mark Walsh asks, can the panel share their thoughts on strategies in the boardroom?
Okay, who wants to pick that one up first?
Okay, hang on. Before I pick that up, I need to know where you're coming from, because I have a total angle on what I would say about that based on my experience in the boardroom, but it might not be what you're interested in.
Mark, do you want to come in and unmute?
Yeah, so the other day we were talking about bottom-up change, and the question is more a top-down change question. And to go back to Tobias's point, those people in the boardroom that I deal with are also people, and they also have motivation and worries. And at the moment, we are trying to push business agility as well as technical ability, HR ability. Everybody's agile in the world. That's what we aim for. So my question is, when you sit with C-suite, are we starting to say, look, the reason why you want to be agile is X, Y, Z. This is what you're going to get returns from. Or are you saying, this is a new movement, this is where we're going? That's what I was thinking of, Lyssa.
Okay. So I don't necessarily need to be the first one to jump in.
So let me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Johanna. You go ahead.
No,
Johanna.
go ahead, Tobias.
All right. Very briefly, I have no interest in top-down change, none at all. So I don't engage with C-suite people. I have done in the past, and I find it scary and depressing, and to do so. And I realized that that's not where change comes from. Change doesn't come that way. Change comes from the grassroots. And so I think we're wasting our time. C-suite people stay a little while, then they leave, and they're replaced all the time. They have, a short life cycle, executive management, and they go off somewhere else. And so you might change them, but that doesn't change anything really. It's like it's the top of the system, isn't it? And it sweeps off, and then a new top comes, and they change everything. I've been in organizations where they've had these wonderful agile champions that are making it all work, and it's all happening, and it's spinning out everywhere, and then they leave, and someone else comes in, and they go, "What's agile?" And there it goes. The whole thing's out the door again. And a lot of organizations have that problem. So I don't bother with it. I want to work with with I want to work with the workers. I don't see executive management, and they're not workers. They're just not. You know, they might have once been, but they've kind of like gone past it. Work with the workers. That's where the change will come.
So I have a slightly different perspective. I have yet to find that a boardroom induced change is at all helpful. I have found that in smaller organizations where the C-level, the senior leadership team, is involved with the everyday decisions about the products and services, that engaging those people is helpful, but not because we want agility, but because we want business outcomes. And agility might offer those business outcomes more readily. So I remain focused on business outcomes, not on agility for itself. I have not found agility to be a useful entree into any level of management. And when I do work with those organizations, I also find that if we create teams at every single level, we are much more likely to get what we want. That allows me to work with the levels of management as if they were makers, right? So Tobias's point of, are these people makers, doers? I think you call them doers, Tobias?
Makers is the term.
Workers. I think workers, I thought I heard.
Makers, yeah.
Okay, so that allows them to be makers as opposed to feeling as if the system is imposing something on them, but not so that their tendrils are in the work itself, but they are making decisions that matter to the people who do the work. The farther people are removed from the everyday decisions about the products and services, in my experience so far, the less useful they are in an agile transformation, an agile culture, business agility. At some point, we do need to engage them, but I have not found that starting with them is the best place. I have found that starting with various levels of management might be a really good place because that enables the teams to actually use their agility to best effect.
And I'm really interested in coming right in at that top level because my primary interest is in how we make decisions these days. I look at the way most executive groups operate together, and it's very similar, honestly, to the same patterns that delivery teams have. It's the same sort of like stop-start interaction with each other. It's kind of weird and awkward. Someone dominates. Good ideas don't get heard. I mean, it's really so similar. And it's a travesty, especially at the top level, because a decision that's made there has consequential effects everywhere. And not only in the organization anymore, because we're so interconnected, it has consequences to downstream and upstream in the business ecosystem. It has consequences for our planet and how we either do or do not take care of our pollution, for example. So like all of those things are incredibly consequential. So I'm interested in not necessarily getting those people to lead an agile transformation or like make an edict from the top, but I am interested in helping them make the agile transformation internally that's theirs to make and as a group. And that basically is just about them truly learning to work with what is and learning to metabolize complexity and change, and facing up to the ways that they are in their own way. And so I realized the other day that I don't really have like a specific kind of industry I want to work in, but I know that I want to work with executives. But here's the thing. They have to be able and willing to introspect. If they're not willing to do that, I can't work with them. Maybe other people can. Maybe other people could convince them to do things, but I'm not in the convincing business. I'm in the business of finding out, what do you want? How are you in your way? Okay, let's change it if you want to. And so, I'm just like really curious. I'm really curious about, can we actually increase the quality of decisions? in our boardrooms and for our world? I'm running some experiments on
Thank you,
that.
Lyssa. That was, I've heard you talk about the decision-making process and leadership before. So no, I think that's something that's gonna.
It's all new. I'll probably have something more useful to say as I continue to have, experiments with leadership teams. But
yeah, it's good. No, I think decision-making remains suboptimal. And I think sometimes it's not, well, coming back to the ethical thing, and I guess it's maybe not always done for the right reasons or done in the right way, or there's an agenda that if we could find a way to push that agenda aside, a more appropriate decision might be made. But that's probably a panel discussion all on its own. We've got about maybe 7 minutes or so. Nikki, we got maybe another question, and then I'm going to give our panelists an opportunity to give us some closing remarks.
Okay, Andre Torgall, are you still here? Want to bring you in? It's your question on vulnerability.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, do you want to ask the panel?
Oh yes, sure. Let me read it. I was happy with the. Oh damn, where is that?
Do you want me to? So,
oh yeah, I got it. Good. First of all, like I'm so happy to be here. Like and to actually ask this question that I've maybe been wanting to ask for so long. I often find that vulnerability is one of the biggest catalysts for change, relationship, teams at a very, very human level. And I think I learned that from one of our panelists today, a long time ago, or inspired by her words. During this last year, with technology mediating all relationships, all interactions, all events, all situations, are we getting better or worse? Is it helping? Or how is it helping? How is it not helping? And what can we do to like accelerate that more vulnerability? Thank you.
I'll start here because I make a practice of being vulnerable. I'm not sure if anybody can see it. I have a rollator behind me. I live with permanent vertigo. I blog on my Create Adaptable Life blog, questions of the week, and they're almost always personal and I think pretty vulnerable. So I find that the more vulnerability I exhibit, the more strength I gain from my colleagues and my readers and anyone I interact with. The first time I became more vulnerable, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That takes a whole lot of courage. Do I suggest that you start with that? I think you can start with saying, I don't know, I need help. I would like to learn with you, that there are other ways, softer ways to create vulnerability in a way that allows you to still feel as if you have your emotions intact, that you are not missing something, that you are not a weak and incapable person. So I think that vulnerability means something different to every person, and the way we practice it is something we all need to figure out. But I find courage in my vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tobias?
you've been a champion of that. I'm just aware of how you are in the world, Johanna. You're an exemplar.
Thank you.
Seconded. I can't see Tobias anymore. Sorry, it's my gallery view. Do you want to chip in on that one?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's okay if you don't. We've only got 4 minutes.
We could do a game where you say half a sentence and I complete it, and then I say half a sentence and you complete it, and then we'll see what we come up with.
Okay. I'm going to read the dictionary definition of vulnerable. Exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. or of a person in need of special care, support or protection because of age, disability or risk of abuse or neglect. So clearly we're using that word in a new way. It's not our traditional way. It's nothing, of course, language evolves. But it's odd that there's no definition in there, it was a very quick search, that uses that term in the way that it has come to being used. Who wrote that book, Vulnerability? The Vulnerability.
Oh, Brene Brown.
Brene Brown. Yeah. Brene Brown has used that in a particular way, and we've kind of harnessed that. So what do we mean? We mean emotionally vulnerable, I suppose. It's like exposing ourselves. It's like being whole. Being, you know, perhaps it's the Frederick Laloux idea of being your whole self in the workplace. Very briefly, this sort of leads me into, I don't know if anyone has followed Michael Feather's work at all. I think he coined the term full stack developer, but he also coined the term full spectrum developer, which is a beautiful term to describe the software engineer who is immersed in everything to do with the culture of the organization and far beyond, you know, the developer who reads books that are not coding books and the agilist who reads books that are not agile books, and they bring everything into it. They bring their learning, they bring their ideas, they bring their families, they bring you know, themselves essentially. So what he's talking about is pretty much the same thing that Laloux is talking about, and bringing our whole selves to work. And of course, when we bring our whole selves to work with our you know, our abilities or disabilities, with our faith or lack of faith, when we bring all that into the workplace, it can cause some problems, can't it? It can cause a lot of problems, and that we do leave ourselves open to, you know, just as they describe it in that definition I've given there. It makes ourselves face the possibility of threat, the possibility of abuse when we do that. And so, do we want to be more vulnerable? I do, yeah. I want to be more vulnerable in that sense of the word. I want to be open to those things, because only then will I know what the real relationships in the world are like. You know, you take off all the masks that we wear and say, this is me, this is my background. And like Johanna, I write about my imperfect, we'll use that word, my imperfect past. And I don't write about it with any shame, and I don't write about it with any bragging. I write about it just because it is. You know, I've been there, I've done those things, and I don't anymore. And we grow through that. And if we don't share those things with one another, we're always going to be frightened. And so for me, to be vulnerable is to not be frightened. It's really that, probably, off the cuff.
Well, no, that was great. I'm just conscious of time, and we, the Future Work Scotland, we tend to pride ourselves on finishing on time and sticking to our time box. I fear we're going to run slightly over on this occasion, but I think given the nature of the discussion, and it's an Agile 20 Reflect event, I'm probably just about to be able to live with myself. So would it be okay if we just had a quick closing thought from all our panelists, just maybe a quick statement on how you would summarize this? My phone battery is about to die. The future of Agile, Johanna, what does that look like for you in a statement, if you can? I know that's not easy, but if you could.
Let me contain it. So in my never humble opinion, that the future of agility is really in each of us and in the systems we create, in our organizations, in our families, in all of our extended intersections with our communities. I will leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous. Lyssa?
I think the future of Agile and our ability to use it well is linked to our ability to remain an open and learning system and an open and learning community specifically, because this is our home base. This is where we come back and get refreshed. And I think it will change. I think it will morph, but I am hoping that we will let it continue to show us the dirt, and that we continue to be brave enough to not sweep it under the rug.
Fantastic. Tobias?
Well, that last thing I ranted on about the full spectrum thing is definitely a big part of this. But the other thing that we haven't had a chance to talk about, unfortunately, is this idea of we need more women in the tech world. We need more women in the corporate world. That's a great discussion to have. I actually disagree with that. What we need more of is more feminine energy in organizations. And it just turns out that women are best at doing that. and men are not so good at it. But that's the energy that we need. And Lyssa gave a lovely talk on this the other day, because it's the bluster and the posing that is causing so many of the problems. The not being able to admit we're wrong. Men are really good at that. And that causes all kinds of strife in the workplace. So more feminine energy is what the agile world needs, what the corporate world needs, what the world
Fantastic.
needs.
Lyssa, you must be chuffed with Tobias saying that. I've heard you say
We're-
similar things.
We're used to appreciating each other, and I do
Yeah,
appreciate it,
that's true.
Tobias.
That's
I'm glad it
fantastic.
moves you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Listen, I'm going to have to close it off there. I'd love for us to continue. We're at the end of our slot. Everybody's got lives and things to get on with. Just wanted to
This
say a quick
was our
thank
life.
you.
What do you mean?
It's my life, that's for sure. This is all I do at the moment. Day
This
in,
is
day
our
out.
February. This is our February.
This is our
That's right.
February. Well said, Scott. Now, listen, just a big, huge thank you, Lyssa, for joining us. Johanna, wonderful to have you back. It's the third time I've had the opportunity to hear from you this week. Always a privilege. And Tobias, great to have you back as well. Loved hearing your insights. Thank you all. Truly grateful. Wonderful session. And yeah, if everybody wants to quickly unmute, if they're happy to do so, and give our wonderful panelists a quick round of applause when I bring the session to a close.
Woo! Woo!
Wow.
So now we need to find out who hit on Johanna.
So
Not
that's it,
talking
folks.
about that. Not talking about that.
I was going to say, I'm quickly stopping him, Johanna. Don't worry. I know how to handle it. Thank you all, folks, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you took plenty from the session, left you lots to think about, and gives you some inspiration for the rest of the festival. And I hope you enjoy whatever you go on to attend. And yeah, have a wonderful Agile 20 Reflect. And yeah, as I think Lyssa said, yeah, be an amazing force in the world. I thought that was tremendous. So yeah, to you all, thank you for joining us. Best wishes, stay safe, and we hope we'll see you again at Future Work Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure to be with you all.
Thank you.